So intimacy. Into me I see. Yeah, I think we're all deprived of it, really. You know, I think when we say intimacy, you know, first we think we're like physical intimacy, and that's kind of like something we don't talk about enough, like freely. You know, we're all having physical and sexual intimacy. Oh, you know, it's slightly taboo still. But yeah, what I really wanted to talk about was more kind of emotional intimacy. That's all, you know, the two kind of can go hand in hand, but we're also deprived of emotional intimacy. You know, we come from, you know, our ancestors would have been very communal creatures, you know, and have close proximity and have, you know, they're people there, and we're kind of lacking that. You know, we have our technological devices that connect us in many ways, but that it lacks the deep connection, and they're disconnecting us from those around us. And I think, yeah, intimacy is something that's lacking and is key in our transformation, you know, with others, and having that supportive community, for one, and being able to be vulnerable and really express ourselves, because that's where a lot of our trauma and our, you know, our suffering comes from, or negative habits, is this feeling that we can't, you know, we need to be a certain way in order to be loved, to gain approval, which means, you know, we're never always going to be that idealized version of ourselves, which means there's those moments of self-doubt and feeling like we're not good enough and we're not loved or unlovable, which simply it's never ever true. Yeah, so having those close connections with others and a close community who supports you in your growth and in changing and moving forward is one essential aspect to our healing journey, and the other is that level of intimacy with ourselves. And I think, you know, when you think of intimacy, you know, when you're really intimate, like emotionally, mentally intimate with someone, you know, it's that level of deep connection. You know, there's this unconditional love towards that person, this openness towards the other, this receptivity to the other person, and this willingness to also like accept that other person wholly, without, you know, without judgment, without, you know, without all the strange human complications that we get. So that loving element is one aspect to it, and then there's that curiosity, you know, when you're falling in love with someone, you're like so curious about them, you want to know everything there is to know about them, you're like fascinated by this human specimen. So with relation to ourselves, where we're all, you know, all work in the outer realms begins with our inner work within ourselves. You know, I break that self-love and mindfulness. This is what I'm talking about every day. Like, self-love and mindfulness will change your life, and it will. It's changed mine. It changes the people I work with. It's, you know, they're such simple things, and they sound like such simple things, but they're truly, you know, with consistent practice, they're revelationary. And that's the thing, is because they're getting down into like your habits, your subconscious. You know, they're tools that get into your subconscious, so that the change becomes effortless with time and sustainable with time. It's not something you're forcing, saying, oh, I intellectually understanding, okay, I need to do this and that. Yet you have this push and pull when it's just an intellectual understanding, because, you know, there's some part of you that says, yeah, I should be doing this, but the other part of you like, yeah, I don't really, I'm doing something I don't want to. Whereas when you use that mindfulness, and that mindfulness and that self-love, which generates that intimacy, you're really feeling it in your body. You're feeling you know, it's like down to your core, you feel it, so you know the change that needs to happen, and it feels right, and it's very difficult to put into words sometimes. But yeah, so it's like the mindfulness is what is creating that curiosity, that self-exploration, mindfulness has this intimate aspect of it, because you're really getting to know the more subtle signals your body is sending you, like like a slight constriction that you might normally not notice, you know, is signaling you maybe that you're uncomfortable in a situation, or you're not fully in alignment with you, or you're hiding something. So with mindfulness, we learn to access the more subtle aspects are being the more subtle signals that our body is sending us, so that we can then align with them and like listen to them and honor them, and then come from this place of self-love, of nurturing and caring for ourselves, and in turn we grow and we radiate out of this love. But yeah, it helps us to love others more fully, because when we don't love ourselves, often, you know, this comes out in our relationships out there, whether we're relying on others, the love we aren't, you know, giving ourselves, or whether we, you know, we don't open ourselves fully to others because we think we're unlovable, or where we take out our lack of self-love and our feelings of unworthiness on others and trying to make them feel like shit, or if we feel like we know if we don't value ourselves, maybe we don't set boundaries. Like, there's so many ways this can show up in our relationships with others. You know, our relationship with ourselves is the foundation of all our relationships. So it's like cultivating intimacy is a key aspect of this. Yeah, it changes everything. So I recommend it. I'm running a workshop in November, mid-November, on self-love, on cultivating self-love. So tools for understanding, you know, how the lack of self-love shows up in your life, where it stems from in your childhood, and then learning to rewire and reprogram your brain and your habits to come more fully from this space of self-love. Because it's so essential. Like, it changes everything. Yeah, later on I'll probably do a mindfulness workshop too, but we're not quite there yet. So, cultivate intimacy, starting with yourself. You know, you can be in relationships, for sure. You know, and for them to be loving relationships, and you can grow through them. But having that solid foundation of self-love, which really, you know, intimacy, is essential for, you know, you could get so much more. You could, the depth of a relationship is much more, you know, there's so much more depth when there's, when you have that solid foundation of self-love and self-understanding through mindfulness. So, cultivate intimacy. Yay for intimacy. Yay! Love from my heart to yours.